Hello, my Italian food fanatics. Today we're going to make a margherita omelet, the last of the variations on margherita omelets that I have, believe it or not. I have four of them, a total of four up there. Today's variation is with canned tomatoes. I've done one with the oven-dried tomatoes. I've done one with sun-dried tomatoes, okay? This one is with canned tomatoes, which is the most like what you're going to get in a margherita pizza, all right? And I've mixed them in with a little bit of, I've mixed the tomatoes, cut them up a little bit, actually mashed them a little bit, and put some torn basil in there and a little bit of salt. We've used 100% California olive oil to mix in with our eggs. And I've also put pecorino romano inside of the eggs, kind of a little bit different than my other variations on margherita. I always want to do something a little bit different for you. Now, I've made these in the event that you don't like sun-dried tomatoes or you don't want to make your own oven-dried tomatoes and you want to get this as close to the real margherita pizza as possible. I've used regular mozzarella because using fresh mozzarella is too watery. Using these tomatoes also, it's a little bit watery, but some people may like that aspect of it, and that's why I've used it. It's a lot easier as well. You can use the chopped tomatoes, but what I suggest that you do is drain them really, really good before you use them. You'll see in the video how I get rid of a lot of the moisture in the tomato before I add it to the omelet. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get into the cucina, and I'm going to show you how to make this thing. But before we do, please, thumbs up, like, subscribe, ring the bell, share, and leave a comment down below. I'd love to get into a dialogue with you, and if there's any way that I can help you with your cooking, I'd love to. Anyway, without further ado, let's get in the kitchen. All right, my Italian food fanatics, let's get started. We're going to make a margherita omelet, except this time we're going to be using canned tomatoes, just like you would if you were making the pizza. This is in the event that you don't want to make oven-dried tomatoes, you don't have, or you don't like sun-dried tomatoes or the other variations that I've made. This is going to be more like the real thing than anything else. We're going to take the tomato out, the whole tomatoes. We're going to cut it up, mix it with a little bit of basil, and then incorporate it into the omelet. We're also going to use pecorino romano cheese, and we're going to use regular mozzarella, the full-fat mozzarella, just like we have with most of our variations on margherita omelet, and of course, fresh basil. All right? We'll get everything together, and I'll be back in just a moment. All right, my Italian food fanatics, here we go. We'll take these tomatoes, we'll open them up. Now, if you're just going to make one or two omelets, you're not going to need, obviously, the whole can of tomatoes. So, what I like to do is take them and put them in here. You've got to be real careful, otherwise you'll have tomatoes everywhere. We're going to get a spatula, and we're going to remove all of the pulp that we can out of this. We don't want to waste. These are organic tomatoes from California. They are expensive, but they're delicious. And so for that reason, we want to get everything out of there. All right? Waste not, want not. Now, we're all going to use one or two of these tomatoes for the omelet today. The rest we're going to save and make a sauce. So I'll get a container for this, and I'll be right back. All right, we are back, and now I'm just going to take a couple of these tomatoes, and we're going to kind of crush them a little bit here. I'm going to add our basil into here by tearing up a few of these leaves. I tend to not like to want to include that center. This particularly with these larger leaves. I like to leave the center out. There you go. Let's add one more. Excuse me. Now, by Italian standards, that's way too much. By actual Italian standards, that's way too much basil. But I really love basil. And I think that when we give these tomatoes the perfume of the basil like this, it's just gives it that extra oomph that I love. And we're also going to add a little bit of salt. Not too much, just a little bit. This is Maldon salt, so it's a little bit coarser than even kosher salt. Consequently, you can use a little bit more, or seemingly a little bit more than you normally would. Now, I'm not going to add any oil into here, although if it were for a pizza sauce, I would, because we're going to use oil when we make the eggs. All right, it's enough oil, even though it's 100% California extra virgin olive oil, which is excellent for your health. We're gonna forego using it right now. All right, so our preparation here is ready. And also, let me point something out too. This is the end of a tomato that I just saw, and that's going to get removed. And that was that basil that will be put back. So this is ready. We'll come back with the rest of our stuff. We're going to grate our cheese and move forward. We'll be back. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we're back. We're now going to take a box grater, and I'm going to grate a little bit of this mozzarella into the bowl. That just makes everything a lot cleaner. It's easier to clean a bowl than it is essentially to clean a cutting board and all of that. So there we go. All right, my Italian food fanatics, I've also decided to make a chiffonade of basil to place on top of our omelet. You roll the basil up like a cigar, and then we just cut this way into ribbons. You've seen me do this before, and then I turn them and cut them into smaller pieces. But in this case, we're going to make very, very fine ribbons, and we're going to leave them in that state as a garnish. Okay? Garnishes should always be functional. And by that, I mean if the garnish is used within the dish or it's part of the dish, then that's functional. For example, we wouldn't want parsley or cilantro or kale, for example, as a garnish like they used to do in the restaurants. Why? It's not functional. It serves no purpose. But if we were to put a small basil leaf or 3 or 4 basil leaves on the side, that is a functional garnish because it's used in the dish. This is now going to be a functional garnish. So we'll come back. We'll do the eggs next. All right, my Italian food fanatics, if you know anything about me, when we do the eggs, I like to break the eggs into one bowl, make sure that there's no shells or anomalies, and then put them into the final bowl where we're going to scramble the eggs for the omelet. I do not like just cracking them into one bowl, because if we do that and we have to fish stuff out, it becomes more of a problem the more eggs that there are in the bowl. And if there's a real problem, like there's an egg that's bad or what have you, then it contaminates everything else. So it's best to crack the eggs into one bowl, make sure that they're okay, then add them in like this. Last one. No shells, no anomalies, no problems, and they go in. Okay? If you've also been watching, you'll know that the color of the egg shell is indicative of the breed of the chicken, not whether it's a country chicken or whether it's organic or whether it's free range. The color of the shell has no bearing on that. The color of the yolk has a bearing on the diet of the chicken. The color of the yolk can be manipulated, but this cannot. It is part of the breed of the chicken. So whether it's white large eggs or brown or speckled or what have you, it makes no difference. That's the breed of the chicken. All right, we'll come back when we scramble these things up. All right. Let's scramble these eggs. Now it's important, if you've watched me do these omelets before, it's important that you scramble very, very, very well. In fact, the more thorough you are here, the lighter, softer, more pliable, and velvety the omelet will be. All right? So I encourage you to really beat the living daylights out of the eggs for at least 30 seconds or so. Now, I'm not going to stand here and do this for you so you can watch me and waste your time. I will do that, and then we'll come back. All right, we're back. And you know what I'm going to do in this variation? I am going to grate some Pecorino Romano into the eggs. All right? And that's going to add flavor. It's also going to add salt. So in the event you were worried about where is the salt? Usually if I use Pecorino Romano, there's plenty of salt in that, and also in other things too. Now there won't be any salt in the tomatoes, but we added salt, remember? So here we go. Let's mix this in really, really good. And so, time to go to the stove. All right, my Italian food fanatics, here we are. Got a pan on the heat. It's a non-stick pan. Put it under high heat. And we are going to add 100% California extra virgin olive oil. It is excellent oil. In my opinion, the best in the world. And we're going to wait for that to come up to temperature. Now, there are other parts of the world that have excellent olive oil as well. But sometimes, if you've heard me before, for example, if you get olive oil that comes from Italy, if the olives were pressed in Italy, then they can say product of Italy on the bottle. Now, these olives could come from Spain, they could come from Cyprus, they could come from Greece, they could come from anywhere in the world. So long as they're pressed in Italy, it can say a product of Italy. And to me, that is dubious. However, when you see 100% California olive oil, you know that all the olives came from California. And that's one of the reasons why I like to use, not only to support my own agriculture and our industry here in California, but and the farmers and everything like that, but I am getting what they say that I'm getting, and that's the big reason why. If you've ever bought olive oil from Italy, chances are you've been scammed. Not always, but chances are you've been scammed. I mean, let's face it, how are you going to know if 25% of that oil that's in the bottle is not really Italian, or it's not even olive oil, or it's not extra virgin? They put it in a green bottle, for example, you'll never know. Unless, of course, you were there bottling it. That's a way to save money. And I have full faith that if in California, they're not going to be doing anything like that. But I've been to Italy a few times, and let me tell you, if there's a way to squeeze out an extra euro or two out of somebody, they're going to figure out how to do it. All right, so we'll come back when this is at temperature. All right, my Italian food fanatics, we're back. Let's give this another little scramble, and here it goes in. All right. Now, if you know about omelets, you know you go back and forth with this hand and in a circle with the other, with the fork. All right, and this is going to happen very, very fast. This happened to be at a very high temperature, but that's okay. This is a simple, but not a simplistic process. Scrambled eggs are essentially, an omelet is essentially scrambled eggs that are put together, all right, that are homogeneous. Not homogeneous, but mixed in together, all right? So we're almost done, and we're about there. We turn the heat off and spread out the eggs like this. Now, a lot of people, if you've seen my other videos on omelets, you might think that this is a little bit too underdone. In my opinion, it is not too underdone. It's perfectly done. But you can cook it more if you like. We'll put our mozzarella on there. Spread it out. All right. How sweet it is. And we're going to remove these little anomalies here. Now, that pan is very, very hot. And for most people, you won't be able to do that. So if you just take a paper towel and go around the rim like this, you can rid yourself of those anomalies. However, if the pan is a really, really good nonstick one like this is, you won't have those problems. You don't really have to worry. And now, I've already put the pecorino romano inside of the eggs, so we are not going to add any more. What we will do, though, is add our filler, which is our tomatoes, our filling. Okay. Now remember, I like to press down and get a lot of the water out of there. And these are not heated. These have already been cooked. If they're in the can, they've been cooked already. So you just have to be aware of that. Let's get some more of the solids here. Some more of that basil. All right. There we go. Excellent. And also, because we had that, we add a little bit of salt, that draws out some of the moisture too. Doesn't seem like it would, but it really does. Now all we need to do is get a little plate and plate this thing up. Now, how do we do this? Come in like this, and we're just going to roll the omelet like this. Now, it's okay when you see that break right here, you don't worry about that. That's going to be just fine. And the reason for that is because we're going to flip this over. This is not the presentation side. We take the plate, switch your hand so that it's holding. Oh, that's a little bit hot. I took the. There you go. And there, my friends, is an omelet.
Hello, my Italian food fanatics. Well, what did you think? A little bit different. However, these little differences make a huge difference in the final product and how it tastes and the mouthfeel and everything. All right? Especially the way the ingredients are combined with one another. I put that chiffonade of basil on top. In fact, here it is. And we're getting ready to taste it. Now, the residual heat from the omelet is enough to warm up the tomatoes. You don't want them super hot. And that's enough to also melt the mozzarella cheese. And that's what's giving me a little problem here, is some of the cheese is very stringy. Wow. Believe it or not, you're going to think I'm lying to you, but that tastes as close to the Margherita pizza as any of these omelets are going to taste. That's really, really good. Margherita pizza is my favorite. And this, believe it or not, is just like eating a Margherita pizza, save for the chewiness of the crust. But let me tell you, if you're going to do a brunch, and this is really easy because all you have to do is open up a can of tomatoes, all right? Wow. That's really something else. In my opinion, it doesn't need any more salt. I could use a little bit extra, but I could have it this way and be very, very happy. I'm actually very, very happy. Now, the tomatoes, they're not dried out. So there is somewhat of a, not a wateriness, but there's a viscosity there that's kind of like eating the actual margherita pizza, all right? So, but you have to remove as much of that moisture as you can in the beginning, because more of it is going to come out in the end when it's all done. But let me tell you, get some really, really good organic tomatoes, add a little bit of salt in there along with the basil like I showed you, and you'll have something that's just excellent. I don't know if I'd have it for breakfast. I would, but I'd rather have it for brunch or lunch or even later in the day, believe it or not. This is delicious. Now, stop watching me eat. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, thumbs up, share, tell your friends, and leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you taking time out of your life to watch my videos. I'm really happy when you're happy. I'd love to make this stuff. I love to show you how it's made and to share some of my knowledge. Obviously, I don't know it all, not far from it. But what I do know, I'm willing to share with you. And thanks for your eyeballs and your viewership time. I appreciate it. All right? I hope that you make this. I hope that you serve it to your friends and your family and your loved ones. And I hope that we meet one of these days soon. Until then, I'll see you in la cucina. Thank you.